years to go through the courts, and in the end, I believe the president's ruling will be overturned. And so what happened? So the Senate passes this bill, and it comes to the House where we convinced, we shouldn't have to have convinced, but we convinced the Speaker that he cannot bring a bill to the floor where a majority of Republicans don't support it, and a vast majority of Republicans don't support comprehensive immigration reform, a la the Senate bill. So it kind of, the brakes got hit before summer, okay? Because the Speaker said, look, you got to have a majority, or the Speaker publicly said, we have to have a majority of Republicans before anything goes forward. They don't have a majority of Republicans. Then Syria happened, okay? Now what does Syria have to do with immigration? What Syria has to do with immigration is, Syria is going to take up at least several weeks of time this fall. Our schedule is already limited. The federal government does way too much stuff in Washington. We have to do the entire budget for the next year. We have to deal with the debt ceiling. This fall is taken up. There is no way immigration comes to the legislature this fall. What's next year? An election year. There is no way comprehensive immigration reform is going to get taken up in an election year. I've been through too many election year cycles. I was through 4 of them in the state Senate. I was through, this is going to be my second one here. Nothing that controversial is taken up in an election year. It just doesn't happen. So I think for this term, I think it's done. That's too bad, because we actually could have made a couple of decent changes. We could have passed a much stricter border security bill, but I will tell you, I don't think the president would enforce it. We could have done, and one thing that we do need to do, we don't have enough scientists and engineers. Ladies and gentlemen, we just don't train them in America. It's the bottom line. Our boys and girls don't become scientists and engineers. And we need them. We need them badly for this 21st century economy. So we are going to have to get them from immigrants for a while, until we figure out how to train our own. The current immigration law doesn't allow us to do it. So we got to fix the school system. But you know, the lag time on fixing the school system is going to take you 20 years to get a product out of it. So the bottom line is, that part of the immigration system is broke. I'll tell you what's the fascinating part. The president admits it. The president says we have to reform the system to bring in highly skilled immigrants. Then the president says in the next sentence, but I want it as part of comprehensive reform, and oh, by the way, no comprehensive reform is going to go through unless you grant citizenship and amnesty. I'm sorry, that means the president doesn't really want to do it. Because we've passed that bill out of the House to allow more scientists and engineers to come in. Remember, scientists and engineer coming in is a huge net contributor to our economy, because they get paid above average wages. They will never get as much out of Social Security, for instance, as they put in, because that's the way Social Security works. So if you have an above average earner, they're actually net contributors. And they make this economy run. These are no-brainers. But you know, the good news is we're not going to do an amnesty bill. Bad news is I don't think we're going to do anything on immigration. One last question, ma'am, right here. Okay, you figure out between the two of you what the question is.
We had to talk about what your position was on the starting the sewage sludge on farms and residential areas next to waterways and schools.
Yeah, the question is, well, what's my position on spreading sewage sludge next to waterways and schools and on farms? Look, I sat on the committee. We heard that in Maryland. First of all, it's not a federal issue. I mean, unless you have Clean Water Act issues, like they had, you know, the Hudson Farm down in Worcester County. But the bottom line is that the state is the one that polices it. The state is the one that makes sure that if something is spread, it's been properly treated, it's not dangerous, things like that. Look, the fact of the matter is that if you go to the store right now and you buy, oh gosh, I forget the product, but if you buy some of the topsoil products in the store, you're actually getting sludge from plants. Right. So you know that that if it's treated properly, there are nutrients in it. There are nutrients just like any other fertilizer, but it's up to the state to figure it out. So you know, and if the state can come to the federal government or ask the EPA for help, but in the end, that is almost always a state issue. So in my last job, I could have helped you a whole lot more. Anyway, listen, thank you very much for being here. Thank you everybody for being involved. The system works if everybody's involved. If everybody isn't involved, the system is not going to work. So stay involved, stay engaged. We have a big fight. I mean, this is really, now we have a fight, we have foreign policy issues that are a real concern. I'm very worried about the President's attitude, for instance, toward preserving our ability, our military's ability, our core ability and function. And I am very, very worried about getting off the path we were put on. Because right now we are on a path that to realistically balance the budget in 10 years, if we continue to control the growth of government. Last year, for the first time in something like 40 years, they tell me, we actually spent less discretionary money. Now, overall, our budget still grew a little bit, but Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid are still growing. Food stamps still growing. But that part of the budget that Congress controls on a year-to-year basis, that what's called the discretionary spending, we actually decreased for the first time in decades. And I want to continue that trend. So, but, you know, we need, again, you know, we appreciate the support, any support we get in Congress for those basic American principles. You know, constitutional principles, limited government, you know, we have rights and freedoms, we're going to preserve those rights and freedoms and control the size and scope of the federal government. I'm trying to fight for it in Washington. Any help you give me, I appreciate. Thank you very much.
Congressman, please. Yes. Without delaying, what is your position on Second Amendment rights?
Second Amendment rights, they're an individual right that the government can't take away, and I can tell you, I can launch into this fiasco what's happening in Maryland. With anybody who knows, you know, how the 7-day background check period has become a 126-day background check in Maryland. Look, every law-abiding American citizen has the right to own a weapon because it is a right given to them by God. Because remember, the government doesn't grant rights, but it is guaranteed to them by the Second Amendment. It's an individual freedom. I'm a firm believer in that. Criminals shouldn't have guns. You should prosecute it if you misuse it. But if you are not a criminal, you have the right to a firearm. You have the right, and it's guaranteed under the Second Amendment. Nobody can take it away.
Thank you very much, Congressman Harris. And again, if anybody wants to sign up on the sign-up list, Jackie Gregory has it. And thank you everyone for coming and have a safe trip home, and maybe we'll see you next month. Thanks.
Bye, Kim.
Listen to Tim Kelly tell him everything's fine.
Tim wasn't there the last hour. He's coming tomorrow to get my afternoon time.
Oh, really? Okay. She is. She's trying to get it on. The guy who just built a house down in the corner of North Mason, whatever it is. Wanted to put it across the street. She's like, look, this poor guy has drilled 3 wells. The last one he drilled is like 190 or 200 feet, somewhere in there. And it's so I mean, if you walk by his house, it's orange around the block in the back. Because he's got a treatment system. So, it's a freaking nightmare. And she's like, drill this well, and if it's so good, maybe he can use it. Yeah, right. So good, some good. She was saying something to about maybe part of the community, and I'm like, no. The one they're going to drill.
They might, I think that's take it. Hammer might be impossible. My So my mom told me she thought she
I didn't read the whole, I skimmed the article,
You lie. You lie. Oh, so
That's the case.
she lied.
She said she was coming.